All right, so now let's open up the, I'm going to open the chat message. I'm going to put the link for you all to access the software. So you can go to this link. I'm going to do the same thing here, and I'll walk you through the process. So I open it up, I put in this link, and the link's in the chat box so you can click on it. You'll come to this page right here where you have all the download options. Now, let me increase the size of this a little bit, because I know some of you are on smaller computer screens. All right, so we have a few different options here. There's some keyboard shortcuts. You may want to download this document and print it. These are some shortcuts that will work in the software that helps make your work process faster. This is the actual application that you will open up to start the whole system. And this is a copy of the case file, the blueprint template file. This folder has the data sheets in it. And so the 102070 and the information for the blueprint that we looked at, that's the folder you'll download for that information. This one here, the 32-bit, you're probably not going to need that unless you're on an older computer. If you're on an older computer, it's a different version of this file that you may need to run it. So just download, just hit the button to download everything. And you'll see this screen that says download in progress. You won't click anything. It will automatically download, ask you if you want to save the file. I'll save it to my computer right here, and then we open it up. Now I'm on a Mac, but I'm going to set this up on the Windows side. So I pull up the Windows system. We're going to go to downloads, and I'm going to go to the shared selections here. Okay, that was my download. So here's the folder with everything I downloaded. Now, what you're going to want to do is you'll want to put this application in the folder where you want it to run from. This can be anywhere on your computer. You decide. If you're on a Mac, it should not be on the desktop or one of the shared locations. So I'm on a Mac, so I'm going to choose to put this on the C drive. If you're on a Windows computer, you can put it anywhere you like. So go to the C drive, and I'm going to create a new folder for this system. I'm just going to call it DP Blueprint. All right, so now we're inside this folder. And all I have to do is to take all of these files that I downloaded and drag them over here to the blueprint folder. So I do that. There we are. And then what you'll probably want to do is create a shortcut that you can put on your desktop or wherever you'll access this software from. So I'm just going to right click, and I'm going to create a shortcut right down here. And now this shortcut I can drag to my desktop. So the icon comes over with it, just like that. And the other thing then I'll want to do while I'm in this folder is I'll take a copy of the DP Blueprint template. I'll put it here because this is the file I'm going to copy every time I need to do something. And then the keyboard shortcuts here, I probably want to print this one. And I may want a copy of the data sheets handy, so I might drag that out. I'll show you what's in it that way. Once I have that done, then we're back to the desktop here. Let me show you the data sheets first, and then we'll go into opening the software. So I open up the data sheets here. What do we see? There are 4 different folders or files, and there are actually only 2. One is Excel version, one is PDF version for people that don't have Excel. Sometimes they have a hard time opening the Excel. I always prefer to send people the Excel documents if they can open those. If they need to print out the PDFs, fill them out, fax them back manually, that's okay. It's just a little bit more data entry work on our end then. So I'm going to open up the 102070. You can see how that looks. Right, here's how it looks. This is the printout version. This is the actual interactive version. So if people can do the interactive, this is really cool. Sometimes this will help people with their cash flow even if they don't need a whole blueprint. So those tools are there. The information for blueprint, this is the file then that we look at. So it has their name, what they make, what they own, all the details, and finally at the very end they have their debt information, what they owe, right down here. All right, so now the first time I open up the blueprint system, I'm going to open up the file, and that's when the activation codes would come up. Now I'm going to bypass that because I've already registered it on this computer. Okay, so it's going to be very similar to the process you saw me go through there. But now this file is open, you'll see this welcome screen. So it'll have the Money Tools logo, say Debt Payoff Blueprint. You can now open your blueprint files. Leave this file open in the background while working. That's what you want to do because this file verifies all the cases that you open. So you can even minimize it if you like, but it needs to stay open while you're running the system. Jim is asking, can you enlarge the screen? Yeah, let me try to do that, Jim. It is kind of small. There we go. That should be better for you. So this is the file that'll first open up when you open this. Go to the File menu, and there's a couple things that you'll want to do to make the software run really smoothly for you. And that is, there's macros in these files. So if you go down to here to the Options tab, go to the Trust Center, and then the Trust Center settings. And you'll be able to refer back to the recording on this if you're doing this on your own, or that's part of the personal setup that we do in the first hour. Go to the Trusted Locations then. You can add a new location, and in this case I would add the location where I save the software to, so the DP Blueprint location. Any files that are in that location will run without me having to give them permission to run every single time. So I click OK there. Another trusted location, I know I'm going to be working with a lot of client files that are on my desktop. So I'm going to add a new location that everything on my desktop can be pre-approved to run as well. Now what we need, I'm going to minimize this and we'll open up the actual system. And here's how this is going to work. If you have any questions as I'm going through this, go ahead and add them to the chat box. I'll be checking it as we go through, as long as it doesn't interrupt our flow here. And if I don't get to your question, then we'll come back to it, and I'll email you at the end. I have some examples that we'll be going through here. I'm going to pull these up one by one. Okay, so I open up this. I'm going to drag this to the other screen here. Just a second to position this. And then what we're going to do is see this copy, the file that's right here, the DP Blueprint. I'm going to take a copy of this, and I'm never going to modify the original file. The copy went to my other screen, so let me go get it for you. Here it is right here. So I'm always going to make a copy of this one, and we're going to name this example 1. So you can name it anything you like as well. You're going to open up this file. And this is going to go to my other screen, so I'm going to drag it over here as well for you. There we go. So in this case, if we were able to add that second trusted location, it would not have me, enable the content here. I just have to click the enable content if I don't have that trusted location. So it's an extra step every time. Here's the 10/20/70 example, and I'll run you through a quick example of how this works. And you saw some of this in the last video, but I'm going to paste the information in from wherever I received it from the client, and I'm going to put their income in then over here. So the 883, and that's going to be monthly income. So you can see that this graph changes automatically as I'm doing this, and I can see the target 10/20/70 and what their actual values are right over here. Now, when we want to do the redirection here, I can simply put in that negative number. I'll put that against the 10% account. And then I'm going to do the extra money towards debt payoff. That goes towards the 20%. And the money to the whole life, that's going to be part of the 10% category again. So I simply adjust that. We can see that their cash flow works out just fine. And we're ready to go forward from there. Now let's look at a different example. This one is an actual example that will follow through that's paying off different debts. So right here, we're going to copy all of these over. Okay, and I'm just right-clicking, pasting values most of the time here. And what this sheet does, and I'm on the debt priority sheet, by the way, now. These are the first two that I'll generally start with, 10/20/70 and then debt priority. What I'm doing here is I'm looking at a few different things. You can see the required payments are all in line here, and he's paying quite a bit of extra spread out across all these different payments. The way to go here is I'm going to add up everything he's paying here. Then I'm going to delete what he's actually paying. I'm going to put his required payments over to the actual payments column, because whatever I put in here is going to go over onto the calculations. From here, then, I'm going to go through and I'm going to prioritize how much, which debt comes first here. And we look at a few different factors for this. Number one, I look at the amount of the debt. How big is it? Okay, that's one factor. And I also look at the interest rate to start with. So this one's a very small debt, but it has a 0% interest rate. In this case, it's kind of hard to determine which one. So we can also look at the ratio, the cash flow ratio over here. This is the required payment compared to how much is outstanding. So it shows you the higher this number is, the more red, and it's even color coded for us, the more cash flow we're going to recover by paying this one off first. So it's a low balance. We're going to be able to pay it off fast, and I know we're going to recover a lot of cash flow. I need to make that number one. I already have these in order, okay, but I could do this in pretty much any order that I want. When I'm done, then I just come over here and sort debts, and it puts them all into the order that I have selected by the numbers that I put in over here on this side. So the next one I would look at, obviously this is the next lowest balance. It also has a very high interest rate. That's a good one to go after. So we do that. And in this case, it's going to, since I've already ordered it, then it's going to be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Now, I could program this process, but I like the manual input in here because it's not always, it doesn't always work out this way. So sometimes you have to, you look through it, and it's nice to have the manual input at this point. Sometimes the client will say, well, no, I really want to pay this one off first. So you can put that a little bit higher on the list. And that's something you can't as easily program into the computer. Once you get all of this in here, then we go over here and we select configure debts. And this puts the information from this worksheet over onto the debt information, which we're going to look at here in a minute. It'll take a while here because it has a month by month thing that we can change here. Super nice, because in this particular case, there were some special changes that we need to make. So that's done now. Now we go to the debts tab that's right down here. And this is probably fairly small on your screen, so I'm going to increase the size of it. We're going to scroll all the way over to the left. Here's what's going on. You can see that the date column doesn't mean much of anything. January 00 right over here. But what we're not focused on that right now. What we're focused on is each of these debts. Each debt has a set of columns. So this is the first debt, this is the second one, and so on. Any of the cells that are blank, or that have the yellow or green fill in them, you can edit those. So when we come into this here, there were a couple changes specifically on this one that we needed to make. For example, on the PayPal debts, let's move over there. And what I'm going to do here, since as we move over, we lose these columns. So I'm going to simply freeze the panes right here, and we're going to move over. Right here on the PayPal debt right here, this is a 0% interest rate, but it's only 0% until month 5, and then it goes to 12%. So I'm going to put 12% in here, and then I need to carry that all the way down. I can use one of the keyboard shortcuts, Control D, and it carries that all the way down, just like that. And then we move over. There's also on the Macy's card, this one's at 0%. And we need to move down. This one's at month 7. All right, this one has an interest rate that also goes to 12% at month 7, so we put that in. And then there were a couple debts that we needed to clarify his cash flow on. And so I think they ended up being the required payments. If we go back to the debt priority, notice that originally he had $80 and $132 here. So he was actually paying less than what was required. Okay, it turns out he was actually paying a required payment, so we had to adjust that into the cash flow there. But if we needed to make any changes here, we would be able to do that. Let's move back over here to the left-hand side. I'm going to take a quick break for a couple questions coming in. Jim says, will you have video tutorials on setup and operation? This is going to be the video tutorial on that setup, Jim. So if you'll be able to come back and refer to the recording on this to start with. I'm sure we will have additional videos as time goes on. Richard says, I sent you a screenshot. Wouldn't let me run the macros. Did the trusted location part have to go? Okay, sounds good, Richard. So I'll help you with that. Send me an email and we'll work on that. All right, so with the debts, we have pretty much this debt information put in now. Now what we want to do is we want to go over to the capital section. Now, this is money that's outside the policy, remember? And we also have the cash flow that they were making on all these debts. So we have a few different things to put in here. Right here, let's start with the date. We'll put in July 2019 here, and that changes all the date references all the way down so we can see what month and year we are at any point in time. Right here, they're starting out with $4,000 that they have in savings, so we put that number in. That's outside their policy. And they also have now the cash flow that we figured out that they were making in extra payments spread out on all their debts. We're going to combine that all right here. It's $1,070 per month that they have extra that's discretionary here. So we're going to carry that all the way down, again with the Control D shortcut. We're able to do that. These columns show how much we've put in cumulatively outside the policies. This column here shows how much is in the money manager account. It'll also be on the final spreadsheet. If we wanted funds that we're putting in over here to pay premiums on any of the policies, we can select that here, and those premiums will be paid out of this account. So that's a nice way to go. We're not going to use that here. Let's go to the next example. The next one here is where we put in the policy information. Now, putting in policy information is pretty easy here. You can do in-force policies, or you can do new policies that you're running here. So we can put in example 1 as this policy's name. This is just for our tracking purposes, so we know which policy is which. And I actually have all the numbers on this already put in. So let me just copy these over, and then I'll also show you how we do it on a directly from an illustration too, because that's important. So we're going to copy this. We're going to come right in here, and we're going to paste these numbers in. Now, this was an in-force policy, so we use policy year 0. This is the current year for the in-force illustration. Now, the number of premiums per year, we always put annual premiums in here because that's how we're copying it off the illustration. Then I can put the number of the premiums in here. So I'm going to do 12 premiums, and we're going to carry this down. 12 premiums per year. We also have this loan rate over here. This company is at 5.25% interest. I'm going to carry this down. I can either drag it like this, or the easier way is just to click the last cell, hit Control D, it carries it all the way down. And I can also select right here the loan rate. Is it going to be in advance, or is it going to be in arrears? In this case, it's in arrears. The current cash value, the numbers we put in here, this is going to be the amount that's available for a loan right now, plus anything that is already out in an outstanding loan balance. This is like the cash value from the illustration. Sometimes that's a little bit different than the amount on the in-force illustration. In this case, it was 732, so I'm going to put that number in here, and the loan balance is 22,322. So he has an outstanding loan already on this policy. So we're showing him how he can pay the debts out now that he has as well. We put a $10,000 hold in here. That means it's going to try to hold at least this much money during the first few years as his emergency fund, not going to let us take a policy loan above and beyond what's already out. So that's how we would put in a policy. If you're copying it from an illustration, let me open up an example of an illustration real quick. Close this one. Let's get this one up here. Here's an example of an illustration, and I have closed out all the detailed values. Okay, something you can do, if you go to select numbers on an illustration, it's going to select row by row generally. That's not what you want when you're copying numbers in here, so you'll want to select just the column. So you hold the Alt key down on your keyboard, your cursor changes a little bit. You can see that right there. And then you can select just the numbers off the illustration. We'll just do the first 25 years here. We'll copy this, and then we can move over and put this in as the premium on a policy right here. We paste just the text, and those values come right over. So we would do that for the premium column. We do it for cash value, death benefit. If we're using guaranteed cash values, you just have to put the cash value in. If you're using non-guaranteed, also put the dividend in, because the dividends usually aren't paid to the end of the year. So if you're using the projected values, you're taking a loan at the beginning of the year, then we need to subtract out the dividend and hold back the interest in advance for the first year, generally, if the insurance company is charging interest in advance. So that's where the dividend comes in. You put the number of premiums per year, put in the loan interest rate, whether they charge in advance or arrears right here, put in any of the information that is applicable, and that's pretty much the process. It's very easy. You have up to 5 policies that you can input on this worksheet, just scrolling over to the right. If you have more than 5, what do? Well, there's this right down here. You see policy combo worksheet. It's in the orange. You can open it up here. You can put the policy values that you want to combine in here. You put up to 5 or 6, I think, in this one. And then all the results show up right here in this combo that you can simply copy the numbers from the gray section here and then put that in as a single policy, even though it's really a combination. It allows you to add additional policies on here. We usually don't have to include that many on the examples that we're doing. So that's one way to get the information in here. Let's see, we have the capital information in, we have the policy information in, we have the debt information in. So now, at this point, we're ready to go and look at this report. And this is the basic report. This is the blueprint that's all completed here for us. Now, there's probably still a lot of columns in here that we don't need to show to the client. For example, just look at this section. This is showing what's happening with all the money that's that the client is working with outside the policy. This isn't in the policy. So the money comes in this month. There wasn't anything in this column or this column right now. Right here, this is how much is free, available either to pay off debt, to go to policy loan repayments, whatever. In this case, this column shows that we're putting it towards paying off the debt, and there's nothing left in the balance column. So we do that for a few months, and then once the debts are paid off, then we switch over to the repayments, to repaying the policy loans, until that's done, and then the money actually starts building up in the money manager account. Most of the time, I'm not going to show all these columns to the client, so we'll just simply hide those. You can either select them like I just did, click and drag to select the columns you want to hide. You can use Control-H to hide those, just like that. Now we just have the money coming in and what's left over that we didn't use. Here are the policy columns. Again, I don't want all of these columns, so I'm going to come in here. I'm going to hide that one. And sometimes you will want some of these columns, like the money manager plus what's in the policy. You want to put all of that together. In this case, I really don't need net death benefit. I do want net cash value. So in these, I think I'll probably keep these columns. So we have policy outlay. We have policy loans, any loans that we're taking. We have what the net cash value is, the policy loan balance. This takes what's outstanding already, carries it on. Cash value and death benefit and illustration. I'm going to hide these 2 columns. These are for extra cash flows. And then we have all these columns for the debts. Okay, 2 for each one. I'm going to make these a little wider so all the numbers have room there. And we're going to wrap the text on the top line. So you can see it does help to have a little bit of knowledge of Excel as you're using this. Okay, so you're doing some different things. We didn't use all the debts over here, so I'm going to hide the last 2. And I might make the notes column a little bit bigger. Okay. So then the only thing that remains to be done on this sheet then is to spruce it up. You know, we might want to highlight this column when they paid off all their debt. So we could do that in light yellow. We could say they're out of debt right here. Then we might scroll down and say, oh, they paid off their policy loan right here. And so I would highlight that. Now you notice we scrolled down here and we lost the column headers. Now, when you're presenting to a client, that's kind of confusing to them. So if we just come right up here, go to the View tab, we can freeze the panes on this. Now we can scroll down, the column headers will stay there. So we can scroll down and we can say, okay, so right here, December 2021, you've paid off your policy loan. Now you have extra money that's building up over here. Isn't this a good time to start another policy? So you seeing how this works? It's pretty neat. Now, remember right here, here's the reserve. You notice he doesn't take a loan to pay off the debt any faster in this case. The reason that he isn't is because back on the policies sheet right here, see right here how we put a $10,000 hold? We said don't take a policy loan until he has $10,000 on reserve here in the policy. Well, he didn't until the debt was already paid off. So if we took these numbers out, now he will take a loan before the reserve is completely met. Now you see he takes a policy loan here in month 1 and also in month 12. It helps pay off the debt a little bit sooner. He's now out of debt in 12 months, 12, 13 months right in there instead of 15. Okay, but he has nothing on reserve. So that's where we were able to go right in. We were able to put in, we don't want to take a policy loan for the first few years here. Let's make sure that his debt's paid off and he has a reserve. And now we have the result that we show here. So that's how you can fine-tune things on the different examples. Now, let's close out of this example. We'll save it. Okay, and let's get a new example. Copy and paste this one. I'm going to go get it, bring it over from the other screen. Here we go. This is going to be example 3. So we kind of did 2 in 1 there. All right. So if you open up one of your worksheets and you see this, don't panic. This is one of the safety features on it. You have to enable the content here. If you see this, it might be assigned to you. You forgot to enable the content. Enable the content, and then it does all the calculations and everything comes back to normal. All right. So what's happening with this one? This is the business owner, remember. We put in all their debts over here. And this is the one where they were just paying what was required. If we look at their 102070 worksheet right here, you can see their income in here. You can see the finance charges, their debt payments. You see some taxes down here, and then a bunch of other miscellaneous living expenses. Now, when I started looking at this sheet, I thought, well, wait, they're spending more than they make here. You can see this bar is way higher than this one. And so we're able to go back, and I was able to look at this in a little more detail. The finance charges, the interest that they're paying, that really is a non-issue because we're going to calculate that here on the spreadsheet, so we can take that out. They probably do have some fees as they're transferring their credit cards. This debt payment, it came out in the personal conversation with them that this actually includes some business debt as well. And so we made an adjustment for that a little bit further down. You'll see that. The taxes also were mostly coming out of the business. They weren't counting that toward their personal income, even though they were paying the taxes personally. So we have a few things to adjust here. If we did include part of the taxes, because part of it was personal, okay, and we included part of the business debt, okay, if we make those changes, we just adjust the 20% for the part that was coming out of the business with the negative number, and we put the life insurance premiums in here. Okay, now we look at the graph. Still looks a little bit out of balance, but here's the thing. Okay, we see the target is 175, and they said, yeah, we put that number in on the 102070 sheet because we wanted to look at worst case scenario. 200,000, that is actually closer to what we're spending. We're likely to make that or more every single year. So they felt comfortable in using this as the actual base for their 102070 principal. They're comfortable saving more than 10% while they pay off their debt because their debt payments are comfortable right now, as a lot of it's coming out of the business. They want to get those paid off, but they also know that they need to save for their future because they haven't saved very much up to this point. So 17% is a good balance here. We go over to the basic report, and this is one of the ones that you don't want to pull up on the screen before they have some sort of visual overview. Yeah, we can see the same sort of thing is happening. We have their policy values here, and we're paying off debts, but there's just a lot of numbers here, right? This is where the charts come in. So we come down over here. I jumped over too far. I'm used to using a slightly bigger screen. So let me minimize this down a little bit so you can, no, I should keep it big, and then we'll scroll over to the chart. So what we did, we can graph the different values right here. You can see the first graph line is graphing the money manager plus the net cash value. Next one graphs the net death benefit. This one I would like to graph the amount of the debt. So I come down in here and I select the debt for the current blueprint. Now I could bring results from other blueprints in. That's what the 2, 3, 4 in this case stands for. You can do 5. You just have to combine it a little bit differently. That's an advanced feature. So the debt here, what I can do is I can put that debt number in. It'll graph it right on the graph for me. And then over here, I want to look at just the money that's in the money manager. Again, I'm going to come in here. I'm going to select 1 MMA. All right, we scroll over, and this is now the chart that you were looking at. I showed this one very similar to it in the PowerPoint. This line right here, I might decide, hey, I want this to be blue, so I can very quickly change that. I can come right in here and change it to blue. Select it. I can give the chart a name. I can copy it out and put it into a PowerPoint and make each one of these lines draw separately if I want to do that. And then let's say I don't want all these other lines showing down here. So I have the chart selected, and I can come over here and I can just change the selection for the data that I'm graphing. So I can just drag that blue line over, just select the columns that actually have data, and now my graph is done. So I simply copy this, put it into my PowerPoint, give it a new name, and I'm done. If I want to bring in data from other blueprints, this is the data from the current blueprint in the gray here. I can copy and paste the data from another blueprint, from a third blueprint, and from a fourth blueprint right in here, and then I have those columns available to select right here as well. So very nice way to do that. So I'm going to close out. Let's look at a couple of things while we're in this one, actually. What about when they have that extra $3,000 a month? So I can put $3,000 a month in here, and we can carry that down. And then we can go look at the details and how that affects the blueprint differently. So you can see the debts are now getting paid off a lot faster, and you can see that the policy loans get paid off faster too. You can see the policy loans paid off right there at month 52, just like we were looking, and you can see the last debt was paid off right here, and we didn't freeze our columns, so we have to go back over month 41 here in this case. Let's look at one other example for the, and I think I have this example ready so we don't have to input all the details for it again. Let's open up this one. Yes, here we go. Now let's say that you want to send charts to clients. Okay, you want to send this page to a client. Well, you can't just send it right off because they're not going to have the software and it's not going to open up properly for them. So we have all these different formulas in here. So something you can do when you need to send this to a client is just right click, copy the report sheet that you want to do, copy it to a new workbook. So that copies everything over. The formulas are still here though. So in this new one, then I would select all, I would copy it, and then I just right click, I paste the values. That's what we do. It looks exactly the same, but now the formulas aren't there, just the numbers. So you can save this to the client's file, you can email it to them, whatever you want to do, all that data will be here. So that's how you send multiple sheets. You can actually put them all in the same document then, so they can compare them very quickly instead of having to filter through all the different sheets. So that works perfect. Close out of this. This is the guy that had the more complex cash flow, where we put in his policies, his business cash flow, and then we did all the different things he wanted to purchase. Where you're going to see these values input is a couple different places. One on the capital sheet and one on the debts sheet. So if we look at the capital sheet, let's increase the size of this a little bit. You can see that we have a lot of different cash flows, and they vary month by month. Okay, so we come down here. When he buys his house, they jump way down because now he needs some of that cash flow to go toward the house payment. So we have to balance all this sort of thing. So how do we get the numbers that we're going to put in here? We simply do a different worksheet. We add up all the cash flows and we figure the sum total over here. And if you're familiar with working with Excel, you know how I did this. Okay, but that's one option. When you get into more advanced blueprints, you can put in all the expenses that they're going to have coming up. You can get the actual cash flow that you can put in here on the capital sheet. Notice also on this one we had the system pay the premium from these cash flows, pay the premium on policy 1. And if you actually run out of money in this column, it will go negative to alert you that you need more funds there. But you can see that, let's say that, for example, we wanted to pay the premium on policy 1, but only to here, to month 18. We can come in, put a 0 here, just like you see in the other columns, carry that down, and now that's going to now it will only pay the premium for the first 17 months. Of course, if we want to continue it all the way out, we'd leave that the way it is. The other thing where you're going to see the results is here on the on this column. So you're going to see the value that we put in here. You're also going to see, let's go up a little bit higher. There we go. Now we move over to these debts, and you can see that rather than actually putting in as a debt each time, we put in a new amount. Okay, so this is just a cash flow at this point, an expense or an investment even. We move over a little further. This now was the education that they had coming up every few years, 30,000, or actually every few months for a couple of years. Okay, and in this case, they were financing at 6%. Okay, and we also have a hold on this. Okay, notice that $150,000, we go up here, there's a hold on that. That means we're not paying it down below $150,000 with any of the extra cash flow that's available. That's because he wanted to save it up for some other things that he was doing. Like over on this side, he needed to buy a house, $100,000 down payment, $400,000 on a mortgage right here. And so you can see these numbers then are carried down as well. You can see the percentage rate on that mortgage, the payment on it, and we put a hold of $400,000 on this as well because he didn't want to make extra payments on the mortgage. This is a good rate. It's actually less than the rates on his policy loans, so he doesn't want to rush to pay that mortgage off in this case. All of that combines to create the scenario then that you see here, then that shows him the different examples. And we ran several variations of this. So we said, well, what if you pay for the college or out of your pocket? Is that going to give you enough left over for your new home when you want to buy it? In this case, he was able to buy it in year month 27, 28. What if you buy your home sooner? How is that going to affect your cash flow? So we put those examples together for them, and that really helped on this case. So that gives you an example of some of the detailed cash flows. You can use this tool in a simple way, or you can go complex. There's lots of different ways that you can use it.